Painday has become a regular tradition on this channel over the past few years, giving me something to do on April 1st, rather than talk about whatever odd marketing ploy is on the table this year. We've randomized Payday 2, made it so that picking up kills changes our weapon, and we've even tried playing Payday 3. Anyway, this year I'm back with Payday 2, and instead of a long list of convoluted rules to torture me on this April Fool's Day, I'm keeping things very simple. I have to play through Payday 2's extended post-White House narrative, meaning every Cannon, Silk Road, City of Gold and Texas Heat campaign heist, whilst running Chaos mod. I chose these 12 heists simply because they've never seen play before within a Payday 2 challenge run, as they fall outside the scope of story mode. It's been a lasting request down in the comments to give them a go, so I guess Painday is as good a time as any to find out how potentially torturous they are. Chaos mod, the crux of this challenge, needs little introduction. One of the absolute highlights of my most recent Mods in Payday 2 video, this box of tricks completely changes how the game is played. From rapid minigames to visual warping effects, and of course insane buffs and debuffs, it makes the game beyond chaotic to play through. That in mind, I will be allowing myself to start with a modifier veto, enabling me to remove one particularly harmful or unfair rule from the pool, and will be getting another veto for every heist I successfully clear, meaning there should still be a sense of progression even without leveling up. Those are the core rules. Complete all 12 Revival era heists on Death Wish difficulty with no crew AI to assist, making any instant death effect on Chaos mod even more dangerous. I'm on my level 100 account for once, so Year 1 gets a break, and all perk decks are available for use, but to make things a little more interesting and encourage build variety, I'll only be allowed to use each perk and primary weapon for a single heist. That way I have to create 12 different builds after years of not playing Payday 2 normally, so expect some teething pains. Oh, and as much as Chaos mod stealth is hilarious, I'm banning it for Painday. This needs to be the true loud suffering experience you're used to seeing from me. One final addendum to the normal rule set is that I won't be attempting any heist more than 5 times. If I can't beat it by the 5th try, it'll be considered a failure, given I'm in a bit of a time crunch here and there's only so much pain one man can handle. As I'm reading this script, I know I've already missed the deadline, but well, the limited attempt rule shift actually makes things more interesting in many places. That out of the way, let's dive into the first heist of the run, the much beleaguered border crossing. I kid you not, I don't believe I've played this heist properly in over 3 years. To make matters even worse, I've also cranked up the innate difficulty of the mod, making the minimum cooldown between modifiers 10 seconds and the maximum 20, whilst also enabling them to stack up to 10 at once, cranking up the madness even further. Wanting a bit of comfort and familiarity for Heist 1, I'm running a bastardized version of the Anarchist Contractor build, although I'm a little bit nervous about the idea of running Berserker with effectively only 1 life. As for what to remove heading into border crossing, I'm genuinely not sure from names alone, so we'll decide what to veto based on what really bothers me during these initial attempts. Speaking of which, even when the mod isn't outright trying to get me killed, it's desperately attempting to frustrate me, as the pogo stick makes it almost impossible to traverse the bloody map. After grabbing a pair of jokers early on to take some of the heat off me, I was already in a decent spot, nauseatingly placing the breaching charges whilst apparently seasick before nearly getting downed as a result of my cheap internet. What I really need to see is more of these neutral modifiers such as Silent Movie, not ones like Clumsy that led me to believe I'd just gone down. Still, I made it onto the second section of this asset flip heist, only to not notice my armor still missing between transitions, needing an early feign death activation to stay on my feet. Unfortunately, a minute later, even the power of the Force wasn't enough to keep me upright, as I went down a second and fatal time. By attempt 2, I sort of remembered what I was doing, although everything turning into Sin City didn't exactly help me get my bearings. Then again, I was surprisingly at home playing on Payday Pro mode. Apparently, rocking the field of view of a goddamn chameleon is just how I should be playing first-person shooters. This was enough to again make it across the border, only to be hit by one of the wildest permutations I've witnessed so far. Quantum Translocators forces all the cops on the map to spawn on me, teleporting from location to location and giving me one hell of a beatdown. Apparently, it also allows the cops to phase through walls, meaning despite the overwhelming power of Grey's snipers, I was quickly swallowed up by my phase-shifting foes. Whilst I struggled to pass what the hell was going on at the time, one of the best modifiers, Sing Along, popped early into attempt 3, playing the entirety of the excellent track For the Kill by Biting Elbows with a karaoke-styled lyric display. That helped me get over the overwhelming sadness of being tased thanks to red light, green light, zapping me every time I moved on a red light and indirectly leading to my second activation of feigned death. Some of these filters might be a little too much, as everything is normal was doing my headache no favours. I finally found out what Falcon Punch does, giving enemy melee the ability to launch you halfway across the heist, mercifully dealing no damage in the process, but certainly setting me back, especially with Turtle Master active, massively reducing my movement speed. I'm actually hugely fortunate that the capture challenge makes you untargetable, which might be something I can abuse later in the run, as trying to rapidly work out the correct skill icon for the specific tree can be harder than you might expect. Once over the border, things started terribly, as Who Farted drops tear gas directly on your location, meaning I was taking damage before I could even move. Even worse, those 20-second lockpick timers were well out of my reach, with constant tick damage covering them, forcing a final forlorn attempt at sprinting across the landing strip, struck by deadly charge shots which enables all bullets to tase you in place, one of the most brutal modifiers to run into when out in the open. Believe it or not, things can get worse though, which is why I'm relieved I held onto my first veto. After surviving an onslaught of 8 modifiers at once in Mexico, I was finally set up to start moving bags to the plane, until out of nowhere I was struck by Vampire, a modifier that steadily drops my health like a reverse stoic, and without any healing in my build after switching over to C4, I was wide open, barely able to resist the call of death as my health was taken automatically to 0 with virtually no recourse on my part. Painday is well and truly alive, and Vampire mode is no more, as the first modifier I'm removing from the roster having already claimed one run too many. That in mind, I only have one more regulation shot at border crossing to go, which I nearly wasted after failing to notice Hot Potato meant the bag I was carrying was rapidly killing me. Feigned Death had other ideas though, getting me back up for another mad holdout on the airstrip. This time I found myself distracted by a screensaver, hardly able to keep my eyes open and repeatedly tased by every bullet landed on me, yet still just about clung on to life. I swear there's some sinister logic to how modifiers are chosen, by the way. When you install this mod, you're actually inviting malevolent spirits into your PC who will activate Stop Right There Criminal Scum, briefly holding you in place, directly in front of every sniper on the heist. I barely survived that encounter, only to again be forced to face down those teleporting swads, dropping me once more as I simply couldn't outrun them or their fiery AoEs. After again running it close and needing the 45% feigned death save, I failed to notice all specials on the map just got upgraded. You know what that means? Those snipers, which make stage 2 of border crossings so miserable, are now bulldozers, complete with one-shotting rifles and 12k health bars, more than enough to drop me for a final time, failing border crossing for good. In all honesty, starting with Anarchist was a mistake, but also, I'm not too sad to be moving on from border crossing. Not that I was going anywhere much better. San Martin Bank is another tricky customer this early into Painday, with a variety of not so ideal objectives and cruel sniper spawns to worry about. Plus, after failing border crossing, I didn't have a chance to remove one of the more problematic modifiers before attempting it. What I did have control over was my build, deciding I needed something requiring limited player input and plenty of luck to shake off that rust, falling on a rogue akimbo shotgun build for this one. Initial modifiers really didn't slow this heist down significantly, and I can already feel the benefit of a fast-paced rogue build, if just to get out of danger when the mod tries to ruin my life. Heading out to signal the beast drop, red light green light was poorly timed to hold me out in the open, coupled with that 200 FOV just to make everything even more disorientating. Funnily enough, it wasn't even the modifiers I had to blame for my first down on this attempt, simply losing a 1v1 to a sniper, the antithesis of what this build is good at dealing with, forced into crab mode to shamefully hide in the corner. So many of the movement modifiers take away your ability to sprint, which can easily be the difference between life and death. Speaking of which, I had no idea if I was on death's door heading out to recover the beast parts, seeing as my UI was drifting all over my screen. Back inside the relative safety of the bank, I took down a pair of VD-12 wielding dozers thanks to the power of the Force, and learned what the Vengeful Spirits modifier actually does, respawning any cops I take out in a surprisingly eerie fashion. I managed to convert some of these cops wielding my weapons thanks to the Taste Your Own Medicine modifier, giving me some extra powerful allies for the rest of the heist. I was also introduced to the rather interesting You Spin Me Right Round, which remains one of the most disarming modifiers, bearing in mind the cops can deceptively still shoot me despite their delightful pirouettes. With the vault successfully defended, it was time for the dreaded bag-moving climax, heading outside and immediately getting hit with a double whammy. The snipers instantly took my second life before the quantum translocator modifier again started throwing every cop on the heist at me in too great a sheer volume for even my powerful DD-12s to deal with. Slapped down to grey screen and needing Messiah to get back to my feet, the devil in my PC decided to finally reward me with an impeccably timed truce, meaning neither myself nor the cops could shoot for the next 10 seconds. This divine intervention saved me for now, but most of the damage was already done. I'd used up all 14 first aid kits I'd arrived with, my Messiah charge was spent, and my jokers had left me, assumedly spontaneously combusting at the exact moment this all started going down. Yet somehow, I regrouped. An opportune timeout and rubber bullets combo gave me a window to secure the second bag, before speedrun helped me reach safety once more. Sometimes Chaos Mod can work in your favour, which is what makes it all the more painful when things go wrong, such as forcing me into hack and slash melee mode whilst out of healing and with only the taser in hand. But again, dodge luck absolutely carried. Rogue really is the perfect perk deck for a run built on these shaky RNG foundations, although its race is already run as I sprinted out the side door leaving a minigun dozer in the dust and secured the final 2 bags, somehow clearing this one at the first time of asking. Whilst it didn't directly impact me on San Martin, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't partially responsible for my struggles on border crossing, so I will be vetoing charge shots as a reward for this completion. Next up, it's Breakfast in Tijuana time, one of the easiest revival era heists from my memory that shouldn't throw anything too out of the ordinary at me. Except, nothing on Painday is ordinary, as I headed in with a simple muscle build, making use of a crit Lion's Roar as my primary damage dealer. As always, things were going great, until I got hit by an unavoidable combo of Turtle Master, capping my movement speed, and Quantum Translocators, probably the modifier roll which punishes immobility the most. Unsurprisingly, I was down for the count in seconds. Switching over to a HE round judge in the secondary slot, I ran it back for attempt 2, actually going down even earlier this time when faced with a Skulldozer who I was struggling to hit in the head at max field of view. Feigned Death came to my rescue twice in quick succession, giving me another lease of life, with morale rising even further after I found out that I could knock down and convert cops during the spin animation, effectively breakdancing their way onto my side. Shortly after, following an arduous defense of the flaming documents, my spirits were raised even further when I Will Give You My All came on the radio in sing-along, pushing me forward to the final section of the heist, where we find Almir Listo and free him from his Starbreeze shackles at last. It's all allegorical. Sadly, he was stuck behind an unbreakable bureaucratic wall, also known as a 20-second lockpick door, which Chaos Mod did not want me opening. Despite a well-timed break in the assault, it first hit me with the nightmarish teleporter mishap, which forcefully repositions me every few seconds, making it impossible to sustain progress on an objective. The assault wave chased me away for the next couple of minutes, but I eventually snuck back in to open door number 1. Of course, no luck. A surprise capture and cheap internet kept me off door 2 for longer than I would have liked, but at least this time I didn't get interrupted, again sadly failing to locate Harudin. That brings us onto the third and final door. Tasers and a steady stream of cops held me off initially, before I fully committed, failing to notice the restraining order modifier had just popped. This is one of the few instant failure modifiers, as if you get cuffed as a solo player, Payday 2 won't allow you to wait it out. That's game over, straight into the slammer, for an excruciating end to attempt 2. Halfway through my available attempts, and desperate to remove a few more of these unfair modifiers from the roster, I pulled it together somewhat on run 3, at least better than this bloke, who just stood next to a hot special in his area until he burnt to a crisp. Ironically, this combination, including Healers Never Die, made the document burning section much more difficult than you might logically assume, as these invincible medics just like to stand there, arms by their side, stamping out the objective like the ultimate trolls, slowing down this mid-section of the heist. The whiplash of going from Payday Pro to Enhanced Zoom did me no favours trying to hold down the armory hack and land my shots, although the peace offering by another timeout took the heat off, mercifully locating Almir within the first interrogation room I opened this time. From here, the day is all but ours, simply needing to wait out the arrival of Bile in the courtyard for escape, getting hit by an agonising 30 FPS console experience right when it came time to attach the car really sucked, but I suppose this is the only way you might get that authentic console experience on this heist. I did enough to strap the car to the chopper, launching an immediate escape right at the end of a climactic game of Simon Says. As I was locked in place, I was unable to inspect my weapon as requested, resulting in me falling out of the escape vehicle and being left for dead. But you know what? I'm counting it if the game does. As a reward, I'm getting rid of bloody restraining order. Like Vampire, that one simply feels unfair to deal with and not particularly interesting for the viewer. I also put together a basic grinder build, another perk deck that can hang on Death Wish. Starting off with the Union here, alongside an Incendiary Goliath, which I legitimately forgot wasn't the Grim 12 gauge. That's how rusty I am. The Union turned out to be a bit of a mistake though, not having the DPS I needed to fend off large groups or dozers. As you can probably see from this genuinely traumatic series of events, barely able to keep my eyes open whilst my world collapsed in on me thanks to those teleporting cops again. Pure confusion and destruction. I'm telling you, show this to a launch Payday 2 player, they will not be able to identify the game. I tried once more with this setup, didn't even make it into the Sanctum this time, casually put in the dirt by a regular dozer whilst trying to film a TikTok. My adaptation was to go all in on shotgun skills and switch over to a high impact pair of judges, specifically for dozer deletion, which they comically failed to do up against a minigun dozer as I couldn't ascertain what health I was on as it was floating halfway across the screen. Running on fumes now, Attempt 4 at Bullet's Mansion was a joke. Another great example of Chaos Mod purely messing with me. Up until now, my strategy has been to take a security hostage to make the early stages of the heist that bit more manageable, but failed to notice my recently acquired force powers made it impossible to do so. This mistake left me wide open as I was forced into hack and slash melee mode once again, with only a toothbrush for self-defense. In the end though, it was purely my own lack of competence that got me, struggling to deal with the amplified recoil of weak arms, and falling completely this time, unable to land the revive. This is it, Last Chance Saloon for bollocks, rolling some slightly different RNG that brought me over to the opposite side of the mansion. That was enough to gain entrance to the inner sanctum for only the second time, before I was again hit by the almost endless pursuit of the quantum translocators. Messiah stepped in once, before the sprint button did the rest. Turns out standing my ground is a terrible idea, and if I can just keep moving, the newly spawned cops will still struggle with target acquisition, just about surviving this terrifying event. The RNG was getting worse though, as I didn't find the switch to the hidden entrance until I'd suffered through another series of scares at the hands of the vengeful spirit of a schooldozer. Not for the first time, a modifier stepped in to save me, as the JoJo-inspired Zawadador froze time for everyone but me, leaving the dozer doing an impressive mid-air splits. This has got to be one of the coolest mutators in the entire mod, allowing you to queue up actions that play out as soon as time returns to normal, enabling me to absolutely blast another dozer out of existence. All that good fortune tends to come out in the wash though, as just minutes later I was stuck with the impossibly frustrating clumsy modifier at a perfectly inconvenient moment. This one makes it so that most of your actions will fail before you complete them, making it impossible to repair this drill, and will also sometimes leave you lying sideways on the floor. Still, I survived to make it inside the final hidden room, almost obliterating myself in the process thanks to the wide AoE radius of deadly deaths. At this point, I solved the puzzle, meaning Bullock was all but swimming with the sharks and my extraction was ready to call in, covered by more of that lethal sniper bulldozer fire. Instead of contesting him, I decided to just chill out on the opposite side of the house with my rare spinning hostage rescue unit, whiling away those final moments in relative safety before one final mad dash to the escape, clearing this heist on my last available attempt. My reward for doing so is the removal of the constantly frustrating clumsy. You might ask why I'm still allowing cops to teleport all over me and ruin my day, mostly because it's funny. Let's be honest, it's already a Painday classic. That said, Silk Road is done. 3 out of 4 ain't bad as we move on to the City of Gold with the Dragon Heist. As a mostly close range encounter, I'm choosing to pull out Sociopath here, using the ICTV alongside shock and gas fleeing launches to cap out this melee focused build. Entering the basement was simple enough now that I finally mastered the finger DDR minigame associated with the QuickTime event modifier, but having hardly touched gas grenades after Payday 3's launch, I failed to realise just how significantly they'd been nerfed, leaving me with limited options up against most standard enemies. To make matters worse, they've also fixed the shot grenade reload trick on the Piglet, another sign that I'm truly washed. A failed 1v1 with a schooldozer is just further evidence of that fact, although this is exactly why I'm packing throwing knives and Messiah to rescue situations such as these. Honestly, if I showed this footage following a surprise modifier overload to just about anyone who didn't know what Payday 2 was, I'm not sure whether they'd be desperate to try it out or utterly disgusted at the idea. I know for a fact they'd feel nauseous. Rubber bullets might have kept me safe despite the confusion, but shortly after, a combination of pogo stick and red light green light required yet another last second Messiah activation. That suffering was rewarded when hack and slash activated on a build that finally took advantage of being locked into melee, one-shotting literally every enemy type on the map thanks to the massive melee buffs my katana was receiving, enabling me to easily defend the drill and access the dragon's cage, fighting back out of the C4 escape route. A strangely helpful combination of gravity fluctuation and pinball assisted me in taking out the snipers covering my exit, although red light green light claimed another down, forcing me to rely on the revenant tree once more, and seemingly breaking my grenade launcher. A final scare was delivered right at the escape, when despite a positive bullet hose activation giving me the bullet storm effect, the combination of pogo making it impossible to heal and spring-loaded trigger making it impossible for my grenades to deal instant damage got me down once more, saved by the gas finally picking up a kill, granting me one final reset and giving me the confidence to stroll to the escape van undeterred. A truly messy run, but my build did most of the heavy lifting, removing quick time events after all the times it's frustratingly slowed down objectives. The build for the Ukrainian prisoner heist is a simple sniper-focused ex-president setup, a perk deck I'm a little new to, but is generally more than strong enough to deal with Death Wish difficulty. That's assuming you're not facing down teleporting, flaming SWATs, coming together to use up my first Messiah charge miles away from any potential medic bags, getting lucky with feigned death after going down a second time less than 5 minutes into the attempt. After outlasting an absolute firing squad of marshals, things appear to be on the up for this run, until a combination of modifiers seemingly crashed my game. Just what I need amongst all the other randomness, a chance to instantly fail and waste an attempt. Regardless, I'm heading back in with a renewed post-patch vigor as Chaos Mod keeps getting updates, bringing with them even more interesting modifiers. Take Clean Slate, allowing me to pick up a melee kill to convert additional cops into temporary jokers, a much needed positive modifier to relieve the onslaught of agony. Speaking of which, this run suffered from some almost impossibly bad luck as, after my first down, Truce immediately triggered, preventing me from landing a Messiah revive. On attempt 3, I ran into yet another new modifier in Acid Trip, which when combined with quantum translocators leads to an impressive mess of vivid colours. A modifier overload had me flying over the crates in Vlad's temporary warehouse prison at high speeds, as I finally resuscitated the madman to move on to the second stage of the heist. Which sadly didn't last long when a combination of Simon Says and the mortar strike called in by Shellshock left me needing insane feigned deathlock to keep going, ending up in custody entirely after the 5th rocket landed directly on my poor broken body. I'm not sure I've fully conveyed just how off-putting some of these non-gameplay related modifiers are, by the way. Everything is normal is anything but, detexturing the map whilst also causing far off objects to artifact across the screen, more than enough of distraction to put my glass cannon ex-president build in the ground for a 4th time, again without a chance to activate Messiah. After another crash brought an early end to what should have been the 5th and final attempt, I rolled the mod back to the more stable version I'd been running previously for a more satisfying last hurrah without the technical difficulties. This one was off to a much better start, finally making it to the central control office of the dockyard where things got a little easier, despite needing feigned death to save the day again when this laser party showcased just how surrounded I truly was. After another scramble on the staircase, I was finally through to decide my final path, at which point the diverse armament modifier struck. This one gives cops on the map a seemingly random weapon with varying levels of balance. For instance, it seems like this AK wielded by an elite SWAT is damn powerful, putting out far more damage than I'd normally anticipate from that unit type, dropping me and dodging my potential force powers, which just didn't seem to function from the floor, failing this one for good. Honestly, unlike Border Crossing, I'm genuinely frustrated because this heist was clearly very doable. Still, we march on to the Black Cat Casino heist, a heist I'm not sure I've attempted in quite some time. Armed with a powerful, if fragile Sicario build, I took on the vault-freeing approach first, progressing the source quickly thanks to the dodge potential of my smoke. So far, I don't think I've showcased just how annoying the pinball modifier can be, seemingly launching you in random directions upon collision with any geometry, which is an inherently frustrating experience. On the other end of the spectrum, Zawadodor remains my favourite modifier to roll into, allowing me to clean massive targets off the map with zero risk or just progress objectives safely. Having gone back to the updated version, assuming things were stable now, they were not by the way, I also ran into another new modifier, Shield Buddies, which seems to be a powerful tool favouring the player as it spawns a shield cop as what's effectively a joker, acting as the first special unit convert I've ever had at my disposal. Sadly, I didn't get to experience them for long, as a taser combined with the 30 FPS console switch was more than enough to put this run down, seeing as I didn't have access to full fugitive skills this time. I don't really want to talk about Attempt 2. After suffering through a disorientating onslaught of visual modifiers while still below deck, I waddled up to this 480 health security, who cannot be taken as a hostage, tried to convince him otherwise, and ended up in cuffs myself. A massive waste of one of my only 5 tries at this. Another terrible start to Attempt 3 had me pulling my hair out after a teleporter mishap prevented me from kickstarting the saws early, before Bo Anderson himself dropped a ton of flashbangs on me. An inconvenient hack and slash activation led to an even funnier outcome as my SMGs seemingly disappeared, leaving me pointing lethal finger guns at every cop I fought, biting off just a little more than I could chew up against a pair of black dozers as I had to reload my hands apparently. Getting a little desperate now, Attempt 4 was off to a much better start, getting 2 of the saws finished after just over 5 minutes when the floor turning to lava took my first lucky feigned death activation. After one of the most disorientating experiences I've ever had with this game, which is saying a lot with this mod installed, slapped around by the rubber bullet tracer rounds of an army of 11 marksman marshals, I resurfaced from that ordeal only to turn a corner and get domed by just a regular sniper, probably the most uneventful down you'll see all video. Deciding I might as well try the other possible approach to this heist, instead of heading for the C4 I took the stairs to Li Deng's spa, again hardly able to play the game as a combination of overexposed, acid trip and teleporter mishap makes it very hard to know what the hell is going on. Stabilising, I took advantage of a truce to get the drop on a pair of dozers, getting falcon punched in the process and very nearly hitting the ground immediately. Only to go down 30 seconds later, as without a joker to take some heat, my dodge bill was just not getting things done. So far, City of Gold hasn't been half as fruitful as Silk Road was, but maybe the final heist on this campaign, Mountain Master, can turn my Painday fortunes around. Or not. Turns out, as strong as this Campbell LMG hacker setup is, it's still no stronger than Payday's capacity to crash, wasting Attempt 1 as I was already almost 10 minutes into the heist. The idea behind this build is that I can really spam the free resets of Messiah, reducing the impact of some of the die immediately modifiers I can possibly roll. In reality, I was having to use up medic bag charges just to stay afloat during the lobby section of this heist. I had enough heals in the tank to make it up the lift shaft, but with limited ammo left in my LMG, I was making very little headway with even the simplest of penthouse objectives. In the end, even a seemingly endless supply of auto revives weren't enough to make any progress, getting walled by dozers and ending up choking on my own noxious fumes. What a way to go. I just about saved Attempt 3 from being cut short too, managing to reach my kill quota with just over a second to spare, actually playing through the basement section whilst already on grey screen. Once up the lift, I dropped my medic bag at last, but discovered another massive flaw in this build. Shields are pretty much kryptonite without access to shock and awe, spawning in their droves thanks to the Riot Please modifier, and comfortably holding me at bay and further testing my luck. In the end, it was just too much, pinballing around and failing to grab a kill for an 8th revive of the run. A few build adaptations later, I was ready to go again, this time completing the ground floor objective smoothly before the punishment began. Once again, the game was conspiring to stop me from progressing this objective, timing me out before I could open the crucial door, but once I had these heavy SWATs by my side, I could finally start progressing again. The Inner Sanctum experience was as silly as you'd probably anticipate, relying massively on Revenant skills to fend off the misfortune that usually befalls you when faced with a legion of spinning and exploding cops. I had enough in the tank to secure the hard drive and thermite my way to the boss fight, which really caps this heist off. This guy is a nightmare on the best of days, dealing massive amounts of impossible to read incendiary damage whilst taking minimal damage from the player. A surefire failure was narrowly avoided by the first positive teleporter mishap I've run into, placing me directly next to a weak target I could Messiah up from. However, I reckon I could have been granted all the second chances in the world and still not made it through this one. There is no way I'm dealing enough damage to this guy with this current build. With one final attempt remaining, I rolled the dice once more, dropping shock and awe again in favour of the melee skills that might save the day. Here I also witnessed just how overpowered the capture modifier can actually be. If it activates whilst you're mid-action, you'll continue with the objective in the background whilst also being completely untargetable and damage immune, leveraging this interaction to easily open that door which has been such a pain point so far. Sadly, I feel like I've weakened this build too significantly by prioritising the boss fight, just barely living through this first brush-in with the quantum translocators. That's just a sign of what's to come though, as I put myself down with the reflected damage from Don't Miss, really throwing me off guard, and wasting the key Messiah charge I needed to survive a second down that followed on my way back to the medic bag, failing this heist before I had a proper chance of revenge. The disappointment of my triad adventures out of the way, failing 3 out of the 4 of the City of Gold heist, new adventures await over at the Texas Heat campaign, starting off with Midland Ranch. This is undoubtedly an easier heist than either of the last 3 I've been unable to conquer, so I'm fairly confident heading in with a chunky M60 armor setup. That confidence is probably slightly misplaced, as I lost this 1v1 with a dozer even with infinite ammo, relying on feigned death once more. Luck tends to balance itself out though, as that down was effectively honoured when the game gave up the ghost on me 10 minutes in. I promise this will be the last time the outcome of an attempt will be dictated by game stability though, as I've found the root cause of my crashing woes. Smooth sailing from here on in, so long as smooth sailing includes blowing yourself up with cop corpses and failing to land a total of 66 consecutive shots whilst tased with an LMG out, going down once more to a surprisingly normal source. Genuinely not one for the photosensitive, but what the hell is going on here? This is not Payday anymore, and the scariest thing is I think I'm starting to get used to it. I have no idea if I'll ever be able to go back to not electrocuting myself by moving whilst flaming dozers pass me by and the game enters the YouTube Shorts perspective. What a truly versatile game. Alas, like that, we're already on attempt 4 of this heist, which really shouldn't be so challenging. The adaptation I make is to go after the marked weapons first, instead of messing around at the usually easier ranch objective. This feels like a solid switch up, enabling me to take this on fresh and fully resourced. After an up and down 15 minutes, the Fulton cage was snagged, leaving me with just 2 more weapons to secure by the river, rekindling a love for the weightless physics-defying golf cart in the process. Although, on my way back up to the ranch, disaster struck. Meet Your Quota requires you to pick up 5 kills in a short time limit, else face certain death. With half of the wave still down by the river and healers never die and rubber bullets active, I felt pretty well set up, managing only 4 takedowns before falling horizontal myself. Still, heading into the final attempt I'd refined my strategy at least, saving a fair bit of time during the initial bag moving section, securing 7 at once this time, meaning all I needed to do was drag the final one back to the boat. But after somehow getting tased out the golf cart and being forced on foot, I really overplayed my hand, never allowing my massive armor pool to regenerate and meekly hitting the deck with 13 FAKs still lining my pockets. A disappointment so extreme, the entire heist fail screen started drifting across my screen to lament what was now 4 losses on the bounce. And with Lost in Transit up next, things aren't getting any easier, as I pulled together one of my favourite build cores of Copycat Biker for the latest Painday struggle. Much to my surprise, the game left me in relative peace whilst planting the C4 on the pipes, avoiding a point of no return failure before we'd really gotten underway. The Rodion is a beast of a weapon by the way. I love burst rifles and they absolutely nailed it with this thing. Honestly, the quality of all the more recent heist and weapon packs as Payday 2 wound down has to be commended. As I've played through this challenge, despite all the obvious hijinks, I've been reminded of just how solid this content was and why I was so excited to see it taken to the next level in Payday 3. The less said on that prediction, the better. However, despite my love of these Texas Heat heists, Chaos Mod is determined to turn me against them, as Attempt 1 was forced to contend with a nightmare modifier overload, hitting me with Meet Your Quota at the same time I was pogoing up and down and teleporting all over the place. Even with bullet magnets active, I didn't have a chance of landing 5 kills whilst unable to stand still, ending this one in a way that's about to become all too familiar. You see, on Attempt 2, after opening all carriages for their printing plates, I was again struck by a modifier overload, this time receiving an even more brutal combo, as hack and slash meant I couldn't even shoot whilst trying to meet my quota, meaning this modifier stack might as well have included a fail the run option. Normally I try to avoid blaming the game for my mistakes, but in this case I feel completely vindicated. Still, I was enjoying playing with this build, so not the end of the world. Hell, I even had the DPS to stand my ground during quantum translocators for once, proving just how good the Rodion is. That turned out to be bait though, as having already wiped most of the cops off the map, there was no one left to meet my quota with, failing for a third successive heist. At this stage, I just need to clear something so I can ban this one. It's simply too much of an uncontrollable variable. Easier said than done though, as I head into attempt 4 with my confidence in the gutter, especially with the game throwing teleporting cops at me just a couple of minutes in. Again, 10 minutes later, the meet your quota nuke dropped, and with only dozers to really fight, all looked lost. Until possibly the only modifier that could save me activated in my final moments, refreshing the timer and giving me a second chance just milliseconds before a capture might have sealed my fate regardless. That wasn't the only scare on this run though. Shortly after opening the final train, I opened my eyes to a mortar landing directly between them, requiring more Revenant goodness to put me back together again. A true Painday miracle. But as you'd expect, the scales have to tip the other way at some point, as in the dying moments of the heist, lifting the train across the yard, another meet your quota popped, giving me a final scare that I fortunately fended off with decent enough spawns, holding out with 1 minute 30 left on the timer and completing another heist at last. No prizes for guessing what I banned. On to Hostile Takeover next. I once believed this would be the blueprint to all future Payday 3 heists, but nah, turns out it was just a very strange experiment in player choice, allowing me to tailor the objective order to my liking, at least as far as I could remember them. This time I'm running a slightly oddball Kingpin shotgun setup, with the power of the injector being comfortably my most important tool. In the middle of some out-of-season karaoke, the power of this perk deck was pushed to its limits by an absolute onslaught of teleporting cops, surviving by the skin of my teeth up against dozers and random cops wielding miniguns. Diverse armaments really can catch you off guard. After having exactly zero fun with the electrified water mechanic caused by blowing up the lab, I cut the last exposed wire and proceeded with the bag moving process, picking up the Neo 2 for one final golf cart romp before escaping in the loot chopper and avoiding any more messing around with turrets than absolutely necessary. That was comfortably the simplest and most uneventful heist on the run, so much so I forgot to even ban a modifier for completing it. But I'm afraid the same sadly won't be true of the grand finale, Crude Awakening. On the plus side, I've saved the all-powerful LMG Stoic build for this heist intentionally, giving me a damn near impenetrable health bar for Death Wish, just so long as the modifiers don't do too much damage to me. I'll be honest, I spent the first 5 minutes of this heist getting reacquainted with its fairly unique objectives, only for Santiago to rock up completely out of sequence. Yep, that's the heist's final boss running around griefing me, as if I didn't have enough on my list of problems. Fearing I might softlock everything if I took him out, I just sort of avoided him, proceeding towards the pipeline section of this one, as a final time stop gave me an unlosable fight against the dozer ambush, meaning I was free to puzzle out the pipes in peace. This is still up there with Payday's most ambitious objectives ever, requiring you to align a complicated series of pipes to get everything flowing properly, which is extra challenging when almost pinballing out of the game's intended playspace. I got there in the end, finding, you guessed it, another Gabriel Santiago awaiting my arrival, meaning the actual boss fight was back on the menu, pitting us up against a 120k health pool enemy without any crits. Surprisingly though, the fight didn't last very long, as the Santiago paradox crashed my game. Sorry, I know I promised stability before, but you can't really litigate for a boss duplicating himself and randomly showing up outside of his arena. Having relearned how the heist plays though, I had a much easier route back to our mate Santiago on the rematch, smashing my way through the first couple of sections with relative ease thanks to the ludicrous defensive prowess of Stoic. Gabriel wasn't taking the rematch particularly seriously, which is understandable when I'm putting out such pitiful damage. The longer this fight draws out, the more in his favour it falls, as a modifier rush left me facing an army of teleporting SWATs who can come back from the dead, in addition to the man himself. That sort of onslaught is above my build's pay grade, especially when I can hardly see what I'm shooting at, failing at the final hurdle once more. Surely the game would have mercy, maybe throw me a bone with a timely hack and slash or something. No, of course not. Attempt 3 decided to place me in civilian mode whilst riding the boat over to the rig, something that obviously shouldn't be possible, resulting in me falling directly into the ocean. Now, no member of the Payday gang can swim or drown, meaning I was instead placed on an inexplicably solid section of sky and forced to repeatedly attempt jumps back to the boat like I was stuck in some sort of Payday purgatory. The end result? 2 broken legs and a fast track to attempt 4. This one has got to be the most disappointing so far, and that's saying something after just failing at the rubber dinghy section. I just completely misread my UI, reloading instead of placing an FAK, allowing my ultra tanky ICTV stoic build to go down with 0 fightback. I suppose it's good in a sense though, as it sets us up nicely for a climactic final attempt of Payday 2's last ever heist. One way or another, this is it. Either I triumph over these modifiers, or Santiago oils me up one final time. If you want stakes, this is also for a winning record. The difference between 6 or 7 completions out of a possible 12. The initial objectives up by the helipad barely troubled me, but things get really nasty when the special upgrade turns half the cops on the map into bulldozers, including, of course, the snipers. Shell Shock finally did me some good, brutally clearing a lot of the ground dozers, but it took me rolling into the mag dump modifier, slamming 200 LMG rounds into them at once to finally handle the sniper dozers. This has to be my sloppiest attempt so far, as even after I dealt with the snipers, I found myself harassed by the almighty Bronco beat cops, who absolutely should not be up there, leaving me with just 4 first aid kits by the time I was facing off against Santiago again. The difference maker for me here was securing jokers early, meaning I wasn't the boss's only target. With all the ammo available to me here, it was now just a case of unloading mag after mag, whilst praying for positive or at least neutral modifier rolls. My prayers were seemingly answered as the older Santiago brother finally hit the deck after an almost 5-minute back and forth, allowing me to rig the rig and make one final charge toward the escape. The school dozers placed in my path couldn't break through stoic, whilst bullet time activated just too late to be particularly epic. One final capture had me panicking in the boat, but I've studied up on the skill trees over the course of this challenge, meaning I was home free, facing a final few moments of torture at the hands of Simon Says, and a celebratory round of flashbangs for that sweet, crude awakening completion. Well, I don't really know what to say. That was painful, but in all the right ways. Truly, from a player perspective, I don't think I've ever enjoyed a challenge quite as much as this one. The experience was totally unique, the difficulty was perfect, I loved the sense of progression from banning problematic modifiers, and the build variety meant I was always dealing with something else outside of the slew of strange effects on my screen. I also enjoyed having a finite number of attempts, as it made each one feel more important, and any early slip-ups that bit more impactful. Being honest with myself, I probably should have successfully cleared at least 3 more of the 12 heists, and I wish I could have ironed out the technical issues altogether, but that's all part of the fun of Painday. I'm gonna say it now, I think Chaos Mod might be my favourite Payday 2 creation ever. It adds so much variety and intrigue to every heist with immensely creative methods of ruining or making your day. Just a brilliant, teeth-grindingly frustrating, yet also satisfying challenge to play through. Hoppip deserves so much credit. I can hardly believe there's still more coming with future updates. As you can probably tell, I really do recommend giving this mod a try if you're interested in the occasional wacky Payday 2 session. I'm also really impressed by the revival era heists. I'd love a way to fit them into a standard Payday challenge run without overly bloating the runtime. That all said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great Painday, and apologies for being so late with this one. Once I missed the April 1st deadline, I decided to not rush it out the door and make it the best video I could. If you enjoyed, likes on the video go a long way to extend its reach, and it would also be massively appreciated if you could check out my custom range of Apex Gaming PCs from the usual link down in the description. Take care guys, have a great week, and I'll see you all very soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.